Nerd for No Reason podcast. I'm one of your fantastic hosts, Mark.
And I'm the other host, Raven.
And welcome to episode 2, Electric Boogaloo of the show. I'm really thrilled with how we did last week and everything that happened last week, and I hope that we do even better this week. I'm so excited. I'm like a kid in a candy store again all week. I've just been like, yes, more podcast. So
We've got a pretty good choice of movie for the week. We did the Everything Everywhere All at Once. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check that out.
yeah, you know what? I feel like this is a good thing we need to bring up here, like right at the top of the show, is whatever movies we're going to talk about, old or new, like just assume that they're going to be like we're going to spoil stuff. You know, if you haven't seen it, go see it. Because, you know, most of the stuff we're going to see or talk about or whatever is going to be on some type of digital format. You know, I don't necessarily think we're going to go, well, I probably will go see Wakanda Forever, you know, right off the get-go. But, you know, go check it out first. It's on, you know, like most of the movies we'll talk about will be on digital, but I don't think we're going to be like a breaking, you know, it came out on Friday and we're going to release an episode on Monday with it there. So, you know, spoilers in advance. That should cover us.
Fair enough.
So, all right, let's get into it because I want to. We're going to talk about Pokemon, which that's going to be an adventure for Mark because if Chris was here, he would 100% force me to take the lead on this because I know little about Pokemon. It was like half a generation behind me, and it just wasn't.
Dude, you would have been so into it.
I would have been, but it just was. It came into existence at the wrong time for me. Like I think Pokemon really became big when I was about 15 or 16, and at that point, like I was just slightly too old to get into it. And I've kind of gotten into it as the years have gone on, but it just wasn't the thing that, you know. Like Chris was prime age when Pokemon came out. I think he was probably 8 or 9 when it dropped. That was his jam.
Yeah, when Pokemon came out, if that's around the age that Chris was, I was like a toddler. So I've pretty much grown up with Pokemon because I definitely like watched the shows growing up, had my Pokemon cards, had the video games, all the dues, little plushies and whatnot.
Well, before we get into that, I want to talk about one of my favorite stories from this week. That it is, of all things, NASCAR. And if there's one thing I know less than Pokemon, it's NASCAR. There was this guy named Ross Chastain, and I, again, don't know any of these people. So if there's any NASCAR fans listening like, oh, you don't know the hit, I don't. I'll tell you right now, I don't. I haven't watched a NASCAR race in, 10, 15 years maybe, you know, and yeah, it is definitely not my thing. But what this dude did was like, I don't know, it's fantastic. Apparently there was this dude, Ross Chastain, who was, let's see, what position was he in? He was in, I can't remember. Anyway, this man threw a Hail Mary in racing, if there is one. And basically on the final turn of this race in, where was it? Hold on. Jesus.
He went from 10th to 5th.
There we go.
Pulled up the tweet.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
He went from 10th to 5th because he was going around the last corner, and it's an oval track. So basically that last turn and floored it, went wide open, and rode the wall, slingshotted himself around, moved up 5 places, and because he did that, He is now in the championship race to race for the title. And that
My
is,
man pulled some Mario Kart
he
stuff.
100% did. And when they interviewed him after the race, they said, "Why did you think to do that?" And he said, "It's something that I learned playing NASCAR on GameCube in 2006."
Oh, that's good.
And I
That's
love it
so good.
so much because it is such a nerdy thing, and it was great. And for better or for worse, you can love it or hate that move. Well, he did ruin his car. All right. Make no mistakes about that. Like, this is a one-time Hail Mary thing. Like, you just can't do this to be, in the middle of the race. But my man did it, and it worked. It's great. And I'm so happy. I want to play some of the audio.
Yeah, I gotta get up these two.
Here he is just ramming his car into the thing.
Keep coming, hang on, man.
And he
What in the hell?
You
Oh
can
my God,
literally
coming to the
see
checkered flag. I can't believe what I just saw.
where like
Talk
his
to me,
camera
please.
starts messing up.
yeah.
Oh my
And he
gosh.
would have got another spot. I honestly think he probably could have gotten the top 3 if that one car hadn't cut in front of him at the last minute.
Yeah.
Because he was moving. Oh, I love it so much. And of course, anytime anyone does something spectacular, oh, here's all my notes. Anytime someone does something spectacular, there's always that one guy who has to poo poo on his good time, and this guy, Kyle. Of course, his name's Kyle.
Classic Kyle's.
Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson doesn't like Ross Chastain's video game move. It's not fair to racing. And reading this article that USA Today wrote up on this guy, it's very much like he is a hipster. He's just like, oh, it takes away. It doesn't take any talent to floor it against the wall and go 2 seconds quicker. I don't think that's fair. It's not fair at all.
I don't know about that, homie, because that takes a lot of guts to be
R-
like, I'ma just go for it.
right. I mean, this
Oh
dude,
God.
in a world where every car is literally the same, and you can't argue with me. They have so many rules that make sure that every car is tuned the same, shaped the same. There is no difference except the paint scheme on the car. And I will
Yeah.
argue that forever, any NASCAR fans. For this man to slingshot it around, I mean, to basically Apollo 13 this thing around the Earth, around the moon, so he can get his car back to Earth. This is great. And the thing is that to give credit where credit's due, he tried to pull the same thing a couple years ago and it didn't work for him. And he goes, I've done it before, so I'm being hypocritical. But I'm glad, I didn't win because I would not have been able to sleep at night and be proud of it. I just don't think I'd be proud of being the Final Four with a move like that. Like, whatever. That check you would have got would have 100% put you to sleep real good.
Right? I don't
So,
know about that, man. It
but
sounds like someone's just getting salty.
yeah, he's super salty. And I think the more important takeaway from all of this is like this is the best publicity NASCAR's gotten in literal years. Because the last time NASCAR was really in the news, it was because of the Confederate flag. This is some
Oh
dude
yeah.
doing something cool, and everyone's like, "Oh, that was awesome! Yeah, NASCAR!" Instead of some negativity showing up, and this is a good thing. Just let him do it. He says he's not going to do it again, but I guarantee sometime early next year there's going to be someone who's going to be on a short track and just floor it and just try to get them points, just try to move up in the standings, and I can't wait to see it. It's just going to be chaos.
Man, I hope it's something even better. That's some Lightning McQueen right there.
It is.
Fast and Furious.
It's all about family. That would have been the best if he would have got out and be like, "What were you thinking when you were going around the thing?" He was like, "I was thinking about my family and how I do every." Like if he would have give like a Dom Toretto speech, that would have been
Oh my
that would have
God,
made
that'd
my
be the
day.
best thing he could have said. Just instantly step out and just, that was all about my family. I wanted to do it for them.
Oh God, I want someone to do that. I really want like there has to be a couple guys that are just crazy like that that are just you know what I'm gonna have as much fun. They're paying me a ludicrous amount of money to do this. So yeah, let's get out here and give the Dom Toretto speech. So,
That was wild. All right. You ready to talk about Pokemon?
oh man. All right. First, I have to tell you that I do want to be the very best,
Of course, who doesn't?
and I've tried to catch them all, but I know so little about Pokemon. There's how many? All right. Let me quiz you real quick before we get into the deep recesses of this thing.
Good lord.
What's your history with the Pokemon?
Um, I mean, I've played quite a bit of the video games. Chris has like some of the old GameCube, or not GameCube, crap, what is it called? I can't, I can't,
DS.
was it the DS? Wait, was it, hold on, let me think about this for a second. The one that's Pokemon Snap, is that one, was
Oh,
that one on the,
that was on. First one was on Nintendo 64.
that's what it is, the 64. Okay. Chris brought out the old Nintendo 64 during COVID, uh, when we were just hanging out at the house all the time. We were playing Pokemon Snap quite a bit. And then when the new one came out, we were super excited. He bought it for me because I was having a bad day. And he was like, look what we got. And we played it for like hours. It was a great time. Uh, Here's the thing about me. I love playing the video games and doing the little weird side quests that it's like, oh, I've lost all 100 of my Diglets. Will you help me find them? Which is like, was in Sword and Shield. And Chris was like, don't do it. And I was like, I'm gonna find all the Diglets, dude. I have to. Where else are they gonna go? um, but when it comes to the very end of the game, I'm always like, I'm gonna be sad as soon as I finish it. So I will literally be on the very last task every single time and then just be like, I'm done. And he's like, but you can continue to play in the world after it. And I'm like, it's not the same because I have no more purpose in the game. I'm really bad about that. But I've also like watched a lot of the shows. When I was younger, I definitely had a little collection of the cards and stuff when Detective Pikachu was out. Oh man, I got a lot of cards from that. We had so many cards, we just kept hiding them around the building. And even where I was working, I continued to hide little Pokemon cards. And my bosses were like, what is this? Who is doing this?
That's awesome.
I was like, oh my god, you guys caught a Pikachu. Congratulations. They were not happy, but I continued to do it anyway, because of course.
Well,
But
I mean
yeah,
that's such a good prank though. I mean, it doesn't
right?
hurt anybody, and you know, the only reason someone wouldn't want to be involved in that is if they're just dumb, if they're just big old dumb heads, and you know, ain't nobody got time for that.
Exactly. Like, what's just stopping you from having a silly little smile because you're like, I found a, and then it's going to be like some older person that's going to be like, I don't even know what a tur turtwig? What is this? What is this thing? And they're just going to be like, I don't know what this is. It's how I imagine your dad would just pronounce so many Pokemon names. and just get them absolutely wrong. It's my favorite.
Me and Chris for years. For those who don't know and are listening to this, if they don't know who Chris is Raven's boyfriend, my brother, and you will hear us bring him up a lot. I'm sure he at some point in time he will make an appearance on this podcast. There's no doubt in my mind.
Of course.
But me and Chris for a long time were kicking around the idea of hiding Pokemon around our father's house, and giving him, like, making him a little Pokedex. And whenever he finds one, he can basically, like, put it in his little Pokedex, and we'll have, like, a description of each thing and all of that good stuff. But we were literally like, all right, cool. Like, the original 151, we were going to put in his house. And the starters we were going to put, like, really obvious places, like put a Charmander in the, like by the stove, put a Squirtle in the bathroom, put an Ivysaur, like, I don't know, like one of the potted plants or something they have in the house. That, we were going to start there. Like, there was going to be a lot of them that were real easy to find, but we were going to make some that were really difficult to find that he wouldn't, our grand plan was like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, however many years he finds the Mewtwo that we hid under the house, because he's under the house doing some work, and all of a sudden he comes out and he's like, "You son of a bitches, I found it. I found it. You know what? It's been like 6, 7, 8 years." He just calls us up like, "All right, you got me. I was wondering where this last one was, and I should have fucking known."
And then that's when you hit
probably
a
shouldn't
new
curse too loud. My kids will
Pokedex.
probably hear me. But yeah, we're still floating around that idea. We want to do it. I would very much like to do a digital Pokedex, like take a Raspberry Pi or something and like put that into, like, I don't know. I know there's a way to do it. I just don't know how to do it because I'm not that smart. But like something where you could scan like a QR code on the back of each one and have that be, the way you log the Pokemon that you found. I think that would be a cool thing to do. But again, I don't know how to do that. That would be fun. So if anyone out there that's listening that wants to help me program this thing, this would be great. Just so we can play a good joke on my father.
That man would be so upset.
He would, because he would find Pokemon everywhere.
Yes. Because that house it's big and they've got stuff everywhere. So it would take a while. It'd be so good. Ugh. I'd love to see that man's face every time he just finds one. He's like, "Damn it, boys."
I would love to, and there's so many places where I would have to get a vet to, like, let us into, I don't know, like the gun safe or something, to put one in there. Like places that he knew that we didn't have access to.
Yeah.
And just be like, okay, we're doing it, because it would have to be one of those things where they go out of town for a couple days over Christmas. And you guys say you're coming down on Tuesday, and then you come down on a Sunday when he's not there or something like that. And we spend a day just hiding Pokemon all over his house. God, that would be so great, because I know he would walk in and be like, "What the hell is this?" And we just have a little Pokedex wrapped in paper that says, "Open me first." And he opens it up and he's just like, "I don't understand what's going on with all these Pokemans." I caught a Blistoise.
Oh, man. Then you would have to ask him, "Okay, what do you think it does before you read the Pokedex?" And he'd just look at it and be like, and then you would have to ask him, "Okay, what do you think it does before you read the Pokedex?" And he'd just look at it and be like, "What?" Or like, "What type of Pokemon do you think it is?" Like, if you're like, "This is a ghost type Pokemon," but it's like the Frillish Pokemon. I don't know if you know what kind that is. It's like this octopus ghosty type thing. And it's a ghost Pokemon. But if he looked at it, he'd be like, "Ghost?" He'd be like, "No, no, who comes up with this stuff?" Your dad would just lose his mind.
And it's so weird because I know that he likes silly things, but there's some things where he just does not suffer fools. And I can't find the line where it's like, cool, this is goofy, this is fun, to, all right, that's it. We've gone too far. I cannot get on board with this. You know, I think last week we talked about about how he likes Stranger Things. He watched Twin Peaks, and we watched the X-Files together. Like, that stuff he likes, you know, but to make the leap from Aliens to Pokemon, too far.
But it's also a cartoon, and your dad's like,
oh, yeah.
I'm a grown man. I ain't gonna watch no cartoons.
Right. I've made him sit there before, way back in the day. I think I was about 18. This was right before I left to go in the military. I made him sit down and watch one of my favorite anime movies. I said, now listen, before you watch this, you cannot go into this thinking, oh man, it's a cartoon. Don't do that. Think of this as like a legit movie. Sit down, watch it objectively. Because I'm going to tell you something, you're going to see some boobies, so I can't have you freaking out. Because my dad, whenever he sees nudity, he turns into a kid. It's hilarious. I was like, you can't freak out. And he was like, all right, fine, I'll watch the cartoon. And I sat down, we watched Ninja Scrolls, this old anime movie, and we watched it. It's still one of my favorite movies. And we got done, credits started rolling. I said, what'd you think? He was like, you know what? That was pretty good. I'm like, good. We've made progress today. And then I went in the military, came back, and it's just like, I ain't watching no damn cartoons. You know, he reverted back.
Man, you should have taken him with you. Just been like, all right, Dad, we're both going to the military. Let's watch some Dragon Ball Z. Let's go. He'd just be like, I
found Dragon Ball Z when I was in the military, and I started going. I went out the comic shops that I used to go to. I used to get bootleg Dragon Ball Z episodes, VHS tapes from Japan that they had in the comic store. And I was like, and I remember asking the girl behind the counter, I was like, hey man, you know, when does this happen? Because I've seen like certain artwork, and I'm like, oh, I know Vegeta goes Super Saiyan. When does that happen? And she's like, I don't know, man. Do you want the tape? I'm like, come on, man. You work in a comic shop, you know? But I had, God, there was a couple like big action figures I had that would probably be worth a lot of money right now because I can't find them anywhere. But yeah. I don't want to derail this our Pokemon conversation by starting to talk about Dragon Ball. That's a whole different. That gets an episode unto itself.
I have never watched like any Dragon Ball type stuff, so maybe we can do Dragon Ball at some point.
Oh man, I think that might have to be a separate podcast altogether, where we just go through like all the Dragon Ball, and just be like, well, what do you think? And then halfway through Dragon Ball Z, we're like, oh, just make it stop. Because there's certain parts in Dragon. It gets a very much kind of a bad rap where, you know, it takes 20 episodes just to fight a single fight and everyone's just screaming and nothing happens. That is a 100% true statement.
Hey man, I'm just gonna throw this out there that One Piece is also very much like that. But I love One Piece, so maybe I wouldn't mind it too much. Have you watched One Piece?
I have watched some of One Piece. I think I'm a little bit intimidated by the episode count, so I haven't really gotten into it. It's kind of like, you know, I know that it's apparently good. I've been around it. I've been to exhibits in Japan with it, and I know there's multiple movies out about it, and I really want to be in it, but I think to myself, like, man, this thing's got, you know, 800
over 1,000 episodes.
Right. You know, it's got all these episodes, and in my brain, I'm like, man, I can't watch that many episodes. Knowing good and well, I'm not going to sit there and watch them all at one time, you know.
Right.
But I just can't bring myself to do it. So,
I think that's what I at first cuz Chris was like, "Hey, let's find some anime that you like." And I don't know what it was about One Piece, but I had scrolled past like a bunch of the animes on like Netflix and I was like, "This one looks interesting." And he was like, "I don't think you're going to like it. It's got some weird characters." And I was like, "All right. Well, let's give it a shot." We watched the first episode and I was like, just quiet and just sitting there. And Chris was like, "Well, what'd you think?" I was like, "They're so cute. Can we watch another episode?" And he was just like, "All right." But it's pretty good. So if you're ever just like, I'm going to find a show that I can just, throw on in the background to just like listen to or something like that, you could do that. And you can still basically follow the plot line because each time they're in like a town, it takes 20 episodes to just make it through. And like 7 of those will just be fight scenes. But anyways, let's go back to Pokemon.
yes, let's do.
We go Pokemon Scarlet and Violet coming out soon. I think it's the 11th that it comes out.
The 18th.
Is it the 18th?
Yep.
Okay. We've got some new Pokemon, of course. Spoiler alerts if you don't want to listen to the new Pokemon stuff, go ahead and skip through. They put out on the 20th of October this little like trailer type thing for a new ghost type Pokemon. It's a dog and it's really cool. And this girl's like trying to look for Pokemon and stuff. And she's like, "Oh my gosh. It's crap. What was the name of that dog?" Anyways,
I'm going to say
so
that it's going to be pronounced Gravard.
is that yeah, I think that was it. But like, "Oh my gosh, look. There it is." So it like runs up to her and she's like, "Oh, it's friendly." And it tries to play fetch with her. And she's like, "Whoa, I am getting sleepy." It drains the power of someone like by playing fetch with it, by getting like attention. And I was like, that is cool. That's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, so there's also another new Pokemon. It's an electric type. It's called Bellybot. It's so derpy looking, but it looks like they could easily make like a Squishmallow and it would be the most comfortable thing you have ever laid your head on. I don't know if you know about the Squishmallow gang because of
Oh, yes.
your daughters.
Oh,
Of course,
yeah.
of course. But I feel like if they made one of those, even your daughters would be like, "Oh, I want that one." It just looks derpy and cute. It looks like you could give it a big cuddle, even though it might shock you. You know. But that was some interesting looking ones. I remember when the Star were first posted, and everyone was like, "Dude, I don't know," because you have got the little cat looking one that everyone was like, "It's a Mara White cat" for the grass one.
Oh, yeah.
And then you had the weird little duck that was for the water. They were like, "We already have enough duck Pokemon.
You mean Sir
cat
Quaxley,
Pokemon."
the best Pokemon ever?
Oh yeah, the best one. But then you got the little fire boy, and he's supposed to be based off of Pepper, and everyone was like, "We don't know." Nobody liked the duck one at first, but then eventually everyone was like, "Actually, it's probably like the most logical one." I like the little peppery boy. He's cute.
I think it's the hair that won everybody over. I think it's the blue coiffed hair where everyone's like, you know what? He's got the juice. Like, we're good. Mr. Steal Your
I
Girl.
guess that's fair. Heck yeah.
So I'm more curious to see how they evolve. Because I think it
Yeah.
was Pokemon Sword and Shield that they had a little grass monkey, and then
Grookey?
was
Yeah.
the grass monkey that played drums. And when he evolved into his final evolution, he was cool. I was like, oh, this is super cool. So
That's the one that I chose when I did the game. And I loved Grookey. I didn't necessarily care about the middle evolution. Like it was all right. But then when it gets to the final evolution, I was like, oh no, this one's really cool.
yeah,
Because like the evolution for the water one, it just looked like a little emo boy. That's just like,
yeah,
I guess I'm here to fight another Pokemon battle. Let's go. And then got a fiery abbot for
yeah,
the last one. And
yeah.
so it was an interesting little thing that they went for with that one. But I think that this new one, I'm excited for it. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm really excited to see, because I'll give it a whirl. I'll find it somewhere and play it a little bit, and I don't think it's necessarily going to break away from the traditional format too much, but I am kind of curious to see, what new Pokemon they have and what these starter Pokemon, what their evolutions are going to look like.
Mm,
Um, And do you think
I
we
think it
will
would be cool.
ever get a Pokemon game that has the entirety of the Pokedex?
Man, if they get all that in there, that could be an interesting game. Of all the different like not worlds, but little sections that they have.
Yeah.
Cause I don't, cause you played Sword and Shield, didn't you?
Yeah.
Cause you were able to like travel from one world or like one section to another one if you bought the DCL, which that was pretty cool in itself. Cause it was like, oh look, now I can go to this planet or not planet, but this little area that's surrounded by water, and I can go to this little karate section and stuff like that. It was interesting. But I would like to see if they could like make them actually connect.
Yeah. I mean,
That would be cool.
I don't see why technology couldn't be there where you couldn't have, you know, all of them.
Yeah.
I'm,
You don't want to get a jump stuff. But I don't know. It's possible. I feel like at some point they'll probably try and actually do that. Maybe for like a huge anniversary.
I feel like we're really close to getting a true like Pokemon MMO. I've seen like some independent people kind of do something like it, and it kind of works. Like it really needs someone to like sit down, like a big group of people to sit down and work on it with controls and all that. But do like a big MMO of Pokemon, you know, kind of like I don't know the cross between Pokemon Go, and its kind of open worldness where you do
Yeah.
raids and things like that, borrow a little bit from there, and then borrow a little bit from what was that Breath of the Wild Zelda or Breath of the Wild Pokemon they did a couple years ago, Arceus.
Oh yeah.
That one, kind of do it like that. Have a bunch of people running around, do raids. You can all the Pokemon are in there.
Yeah.
I really think that would be super fun.
Yeah. That could be a pretty fun game, actually. Especially if you can like play it online so you can like join with your friends and stuff like that. And it's not just like, oh, I just have to play it by myself, but if you all game together, I think that'd be a really cool idea.
Yeah, that would kind of force me to game with people because I don't really play with a bunch of people. You know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Pokemon coming out in 2 weeks, kids.
Hey.
Tell your parents. Pitch a temper tantrum.
You ready to talk movie?
Oh, I'm excited because you literally just got done watching this movie, didn't you?
I did. I was very busy this week, so I literally didn't have time to watch it until I got off work. And so I was like, I rush home, shower, let's throw it on. Well, I had no concept of this movie. I was still working at Regal as the manager last year when we first got the posters in, and I was kind of like the person that made sure all the posters stayed in a certain way so we knew what came out when. So when this poster first came in, it was just a bunch of Google eyes, and I was like, what the heck is this? And it took me a minute to realize, no, there's words in there somehow. So I like stand back and I was like, okay. Uh, I had never seen a single commercial for it. So I had, it was about, but I was like, I still want to see it because I like those little artsy movies, stuff like that. But our Regal never got anything like that, fortunately. I would just like to say it's a very good movie. And if you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend it.
This
Had you
is
seen it prior
yeah,
to us actually watching this?
I watched it a couple months ago, I think when it first came out on digital. I watched it cuz I've
Mhm.
heard so much things about it, and it was, man, I like it. I do. I really like it. It is a movie that throws a lot at you. And if
Yeah.
you're not ready for it, it can be very overwhelming. Like I enjoyed it more this second time around because I
Mhm.
had kind of a frame of reference as to how everything was going on. And I will say that I enjoyed it a lot more because I was able to pick out a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of background things that were happening. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, this is going to come into play later. And it made me appreciate the movie a whole lot more. So, you know what? Before we get too deep in it, I want to kind of break down what this movie is. I mean, at its core, I guess the
Yeah.
best way if I was pitching this to somebody, even though I recommend that everyone go into this movie cold, is it's a multiverse movie. Picture like a Doctor Strange, you know, multiversal movie, but not Doctor Strange because the best way I could describe this movie it's a movie about what would happen if I did a thing. If you've ever thought to yourself, I wonder how my life would have turned out if I would have did this instead of that. That's what this movie is, literally its whole concept. And and when they say everything, I mean it is everything.
Yeah.
And just before we even get to the title card or there's not even a title card. Before we get to like the first kind of thing, the part one, letter title, everything. It is hectic. It's like the first 12 minutes of the movie, and it is just everything happening. Everything, everything, everything. I was like, Jesus, this is pretty intense. The Michelle
Yeah.
Yeoh is trying to get her taxes right. Waymond is basically trying to divorce her and trying to talk to her like, baby, come on, please, let's just talk. She's too busy for it. Her daughter is over there and just trying to introduce her girlfriend, and grandpa shows up and he's old and dementia and all this, and it's just so much happening at one time, and I could feel the anxiety as I was watching it. It was crazy.
Yeah. It was definitely very hectic in the beginning. I like didn't realize I was going to have to read for a second, so I had like turned around. Next thing I know, I'm like, "Oh, there's words on the screen." So I'm like trying to pay attention, but there's like so much going on, not even just like with whatever they're doing, but like in the background type stuff. Cause you see him like fumbling around because their house is like super cluttered and stuff like that. And he's just like, hey, can we talk? And she's like, nah, 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 nah. Party mode. We have to take care of everything. I was like, all right, I don't know what we're getting into here. The last time I felt the way that I felt when I watched the beginning of this movie, I don't know if you ever saw Midsummer, but like how the very beginning of it was very hectic. That's how I felt, and I was like, I don't know if it's going to turn out to be Midsommery. I really hope not. It definitely takes a much better turn when they hit the elevator scene.
Yeah. And when um I actually made it a point to try to take notes for this movie because I was really wanting to kind of just things that I saw. Um I really there was little things like the little kind of filmmaking choices that they did that I really enjoyed, like such visual stylistic things, like when Jobu Tobaki, whenever she is her first scene and she's flipping through realities as she's ticking through to get to, I don't know, I guess what we'll call our reality that we start with in the movie. It's like she kind of moves her hand and her head, like an old channel, like you're rotating an analog knob on an old school TV, like clicking through the channels,
Mm-hmm.
and the scenes change. And I was like, this is such a good visual.
Yeah.
And just the way that Jobu also, as she's changing her style, literally every time there's a break where you're not watching her or something like her first scene as she's running her nails along that little office kind of partition and her nails are changing color. I'm like, this is
That was so cool.
just such good, awesome visual storytelling because you know that like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's about to go down. You don't know what's about to happen, but you know it's about to go down. And then from there we watch a guy get beat up with huge dildos.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's literally like 10 minutes later in the movie. Like, what in the hell am I watching?
Yeah. Because it went from like, oh, this man's head just turned into glitter to she's now beating up a man with dildos. And you're just seeing like the main character laying on the floor, like, what is happening right now?
Right. And uh I'm looking at my notes and I wrote this note. I was like, this movie is like a fever dream. It's like the director said, what wild shit can we get away with? That is literally.
I mean, they did a lot of stuff in this movie that was just you never would expect what else is coming next because it was just constant flipping between the two realities, but also one of the characters was like also flipping between these, but you wouldn't realize it until the facial expressions just like changed and you were like, okay, he's back. Or it's back to the main guy.
Yeah.
So that was he was a really good actor. I thought he did super good. Also, in the very beginning, where like Evelyn and her daughter are like having that conversation because she's like, "My girlfriend's allowed to be here," blah 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 blah, blah. And you just see the camera behind them of the store where the father is literally just doing flips through their laundromat. I was like, "What is happening right now?"
Yeah. That's man. The first time I saw it, I was like, what is going on? Like, because they don't really hide it. I mean, but as you see it the first time, you're like, okay, cool. Like, that's weird that he did this, and he doesn't seem like the kind of person to do this. And then, like, you know, literally the next time you see him, he's this shy, meager kind of guy who's just desperately heartbroken, trying to divorce his wife. As they're going in the IRS building, and you're like, what the hell's going on?
Right.
And oh, speaking of the IRS, what did you think of Jamie Lee Curtis? I don't
Oh
know how
my
much you know about
gosh.
Jamie Lee Curtis of Halloween fame, and
Uh, hello. I love Halloween. I've seen all of the Halloween movies except for the last one that has recently come out. But now that I'm working at the theater again, I'll probably go watch it. But when I first like was watching it, I was like, "Oh, that looks like Jamie Lee Curtis." And then it like zooms in on her. I was like, "Oh, we're in for a treat because that woman can act."
She did.
And then so she's this stone cold, just we're doing business right now. This is all that matters. And if you're not focused on it, then why are you here? Like that kind of attitude, which I really liked seeing her in because you're so used to seeing her either do like comedies or like horror films, stuff like that. So I like seeing this side of her that's just like, I'm gonna get get a little wild with it at some point.
I love that they made her look so frumpy and they convinced her to do it.
Right?
And she looked so, oh, what's the word? I mean, I guess frumpy's probably the best word, but they gave her a bad haircut. They were just like, yeah, poke out your gut. We don't care. Look like you've been working in an office your entire career and you're good at your job. You know you're good at your job, but just go for it.
But
And
make it look like you wake up every day just miserable, and then you just go into work and you're just like, let's get it done so I can go home.
right, right. And then somehow, like she had to be on board for this because they got her later on to put hot dogs on her fingers.
Oh my
and
gosh.
and to be in a lesbian relationship with hot dogs on her fingers, which
There,
if there was one part in this movie where you were like, that's it, I'm done, it's that and the shoving the award up their ass scene.
oh my gosh. As soon as you see those, you're like, all right, why she got butt plugs like just on the desk? And everyone's just kind of like, oh, look at those awards. She's like, not everyone just gets something like this. It's like, I think you can go on Amazon and order something like that, ma'am.
And then just when you think you've seen it all, there's Rakakuni, voiced by Randy Newman. Of all people, they got Randy Newman to do that. This movie, oh God, I'm telling you, it really is like, let's see what wild shit we can get away with. Because when they had a raccoon on that dude's head while he was hibachi cooking, the first time I saw it, I just laughed and laughed and laughed. And this time I saw it again because now that I knew that Randy Newman was the voice of this thing and they're back in the kitchen just to singing and singing along, I was like, oh man, come on. What are we doing?
I don't know. I did really like that end scene though, where she like tries to hop up on his shoulders and starts riding him like the raccoon had
Oh
been
yeah.
riding on top of him as he chases the car. It was so good.
What did you think about the fake ending at the 90-minute mark?
Dude,
Were you tricked?
everything was just, yeah. Like, I never knew anything that was coming because I was like, I don't know what to expect with anything at this point. Just, what did you think about it?
The
Because,
first
like,
time,
when I first was like, I was just confused the whole time.
yeah, yeah,
But
that's
it keeps you like very engaged though.
it does, which is really like a strange feat for something like this.
Hmm.
Because this is like one of those movies, like few other movies, where either you are in or you're not.
Yeah.
And if you're in, you're committed. Like you want to see how all this plays out. And if you're not, then by that point you've already tuned out. Like it's like,
Yeah.
oh, thank God it's over with, and then it starts back up, and you're like, oh, damn it, there's more. You know. So I saw it and it ended. I was like, man, this is a hell of a way to end a movie. Like this doesn't make any sense. Like I have so many more questions, and then it pulls out, and you're in that theater, And I was like, oh, clever little girl, you did it, you know. And then it picks back up with the rest of the thing, and we get. I think was that the point? Like we hadn't even gone to like part 2 at that point, right?
I think that's when part 2 kind of
I
starts.
think so too. Yeah. So yeah, and then that's right because then when the second title card came up and it said everywhere, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
all right, I'm on board. Let's see what you do. And then Michelle Yeoh gives starts getting Matrix powers and literally starts stopping bullets with her hand or with her mind. I'm like, oh, here we go. Well, y'all done messed up now. And the rest of it from there on is just one man. The fight scenes in this movie are
They were
incredible.
good. Yeah.
I
I wouldn't expect, from this style of movie, I would have never expected like fight scenes to be as good as they are.
and in the best way to say this, they're very Jackie Chanish, where there's very particular movement. You could tell that it's very choreographed, but
Hmm.
Michelle Yeoh or Yao, I really hope I'm not butchering her name, is she's very known for like her Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon type movies where there's a lot of wire work and stuff like that, and there is some of that in here, but
Hmm.
a lot of these fight scenes are very Jackie Chanish, whereas they are actual moves that people do. Takes a lot of choreographing to do it the correct way, but they are actual physical moves that people do. And that was something that really stuck out to me. In a world where all this pandemonium is going on, a lot of people just really aren't, there's not a lot of wire work, I don't think.
Hmm.
So, yeah. And everyone in this movie, like as I'm going through, as I'm like again going through the notes, everyone acted acted their butt off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Insane. Because even by the end, when Michelle Yeoh's character is drunk and is just kind of just like, I don't care anymore, whatever. That's a great performance. Joy's performance is phenomenal. Is so great. You actually feel for the character and what she's doing. She's not just a bad guy. She's a bad guy with like feelings, and you understand where she's coming from, which I
Hmm.
love a good villain arc like that. You know, I
Yeah.
don't I don't like villains that are just evil for evil's sake. Like I want villains that have, a meaty story. You know why they're doing what they're doing, and it's you feel it.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
did really I really like the part where once she gets back to like the main reality and she's like, screw it. I know this is my dad, but like he doesn't have to like care about the life that I'm living. Like if he's proud of me or not, it doesn't matter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, this is your granddaughter. She's everything just like me. And this is her girlfriend. And she's just like, oh no. Because, in the beginning of the story, it's like, well, either we can tell him that I'm a lesbian and you're my girlfriend of 3 years and die, or we can not tell him and he'll still die. And the mom's just like, dude.
Right.
But I did really appreciate the character arc of, you know what, screw it. Life is infinite possibilities and realities and whatnot. And I want this reality to be better for my daughter than all the other realities that were out there.
Yep.
I thought that was sweet.
There was one quote that Alpha Waymond said that I thought was great, but at the same time sad, but also really funny. This movie's so well written.
Hmm.
When he's breaking down to Evelyn everything, like why me? Why did you pick me? And he goes, because you're capable of anything, or you're capable of anything because you're bad at everything. You have
Yeah.
failed at everything in this reality, which means that your possibilities are endless. Basically, you've hit rock bottom and you have nowhere to go but up. And
Dude.
that hit so hard because it's all three things at once. It's sad, it's the crux of the whole movie, and it's just like the most ruthless thing you could say to somebody. You
Yeah.
know, like you're destined for greatness because you suck at life.
Right. Because at the closer to the beginning, when he's like, nope, it wasn't her. And he's like, I'm going to leave. And then she's like, bro. And then she's able to figure out how to switch realities and whatever and starts fighting off the bad guys. And he comes back. And she was like, screw you.
Yeah.
I can be better. He was like, I'm sorry. I guess I was wrong. But yeah, I really enjoy that movie. Like every single turn, every character, I was completely with it. I would rate that very highly in
Do you want
movies
to
that I've seen.
do you want to do like a custom movie rating? That seems to be the cool thing where you can be like, oh man, cool. It's like I give it 7 elephants out of 5. I don't know what that means. It's honestly the first thing I came up with. My
We're gonna roll a D20 on this.
No, I'm with you. I really enjoyed this movie. This is a fantastic movie. I can't remember when it came out and if it's due for awards
It came
this
out
year.
at the beginning of this year.
Okay, so it should be
Yeah.
eligible for movies or for awards, next spring when award season hits.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think at a minimum this should get a writing nod because it is, with everything that's going on, it's very hard to get lost in the weeds in a movie like this
Hmm.
when you're writing it, and they never seem to do that.
Yeah.
There are a few. There are a few. I guess you could have. We'll call them extended universe questions about this. The alpha joy or the big white room where the bagel is.
The everything bagel.
The everything bagel. What I you could have questions about that, but it doesn't really matter. So it's I look forward to seeing this movie take home at least one award, if not many, in the spring when
Yeah.
award season hits. So
Absolutely.
I recommend it.
Maybe they'll get an award even for costumes because they did do really good.
They
Like
did.
on Joy's costume. Like you
Yeah.
were saying, how she changed it up every single time. I really like dug a lot of the stuff she was wearing, like the dramatic makeup, the crazy hair, the outfits. They just kept coming, and I was like, okay, okay. I liked whatever that big green with like the puffballs one was. It was pretty cool.
Was that the one where she literally had Jobu in her hair on her forehead?
Yeah, that one was good. And then the fact that like when she first showed up in the big white room and she had like the weird circle on her head, and I was like, what the heck is this? And then she like reveals the everything bagel, and I was like, oh, okay. She's got her own little bagel on top of her head. Like I like that things were just like clicking within scenes that were
Mm-hmm.
just like, okay, good choices, good choices.
All right. Well, let's talk about my favorite thing that we're going to do every week is Raven. I want you to tell me what made you happy this week.
Um. Oh yeah. It was Halloween this week
It,
at the very beginning of the week.
it
And
was.
Halloween is my favorite holiday.
Do you live in a place where a bunch of kids came by and did trick or treats?
Here's the thing. I've always lived in neighborhoods at the very end of the road where there were hardly any kids where I grew up and in the neighborhood that I was living with at Chris. We never had kids come to the door. I had to work on Halloween night
Ooh.
at the movie theater. So if kids came up knocking at my door, it took me like a few hours to realize, oh no, I hope the boys aren't like super stressed right now because they were just in their crates, just hanging out. And I was like, oh, I feel bad. I didn't leave any candy out because I completely forgot for whatever reason. And so I got home and they just like were super quiet. And I was like, So I went in the room, turned on the light, and they like stared at me for a minute. I was like, are you guys okay? They were like, let me out.
Mom, you ain't never gonna believe what happened.
There were so many knocking on the door. What about you? What was your favorite thing of the week?
Let's see. Halloween was good. But I think my highlight of the week was I got to go and meet some new people, and we are starting a D&D game. And that makes me happy for a couple reasons. One, I get to play D&D again, and I'm not a super nerd at the D&D, but I enjoy playing it. I enjoy meeting new people through D&D because some of my best friends, that's how I met them, and this is a whole brand new group of people that I met through my cousin. And I fell in with these guys instantly, which is always a good sign because when you meet new people, it's kind of weird if I know that I have a very
Yeah.
particular sense of humor and especially a very particular set of interests at work. If I was to set put a bunch of Pokemon around work and people would find it, they would come to me and be like, "What is this?" There would be absolutely no question as to like who this is.
Right.
So I walk into this guy's house and he's a grown man with a wife. He doesn't have any kids and has adult money and has adult, I don't want to say adult toys. That's the wrong thing. But he has like nerd toys. He has like these big statues of figures and stuff like in his little man cave. And he has a closet, like a walk-in closet, just slapped full of magic cards. And
Oh
somehow
my
has never
gosh.
really gotten into D&D. So we sat down with the guy who's going to be our dungeon master, and I found out that this dude literally works in the same area as me, like 3 cubes down. So
Oh.
that was weird. I was like, "Where do you work?" And he told me. I was like, "No, you don't, because I work there." He was like, "Where do you work?" I said, "I work over here by this office." He's like, "No way." So yeah, we just work on opposite days because because the teleworking and stuff, he must have came on during the pandemic, and now that they're trying to integrate
Oh.
us back into the office, one group comes in one set of days and another group comes in another set of days. So we work on opposite days, and but that was super fun because I got to sit down and create this new character that looks like a Thundercat, but I'm going to play him like Thor, and I can't wait. My previous D&D character.
I was gonna ask you to explain your last one.
Okay, my last one, or better yet, my first one. Let me say my first one because he
There
wasn't
you
my
go.
last one. My first one is my favorite character I've ever played. I think I played him for about 2 years with my previous group of friends. It was a Dragonborn fighter named Lamangelo Williams, and he was awesome. By the time that campaign kind of fizzled out and we kind of adventured ourselves into a corner that we couldn't get out of, we Lamangelo was doing so much damage and was just doing all this incredible stuff, and somehow I tried to when I started playing him. I started playing him as kind of like a Black Dynamite Shaft, kind of super fly, cool, 1970s soul brother. And I basically made his backstory like he played football for whatever the equivalent of Alabama would be in this magical
Oh my
world. Got out, did like 4 years in the military because he had to. And when he got out of that, he fell in with this adventuring group. And from there, we started a biscuits and gravy licensing company where we would license the recipe for biscuits and gravy all throughout this world that we were in. And we would get so much profit off of that. And and somehow Lamangelo morphed into being the dad of the group. But yeah. And then after that, I played a character called Braxton Thaxton Jackson Palmer III.
Oh my gosh.
And then after that, the last campaign we did right before COVID hit was we were playing a campaign, and I wanted to do a preacher, basically, who worshipped a very obscure D&D god. The more obscure, the better. So I dug through a lot of lore, but I had to have something that was like the right balance of like, I could find something and I couldn't make it up. So I was like, okay, he's going to be like a prophet. He's going to be a preacher for the Raven Queen. And I gave him like the black preacher voice, so he would be like this, and you listen to me, and let me tell you about the Raven Queen, and then to do the thing, and that was my whole way. And he was a cleric, and I never really got to play him that much because the COVID hit, and Brother CJ, what was it, Carmel Jamarius Jackson, Brother CJ, just kind of died on the vine. It makes me sad. So, and now this new character,
R.I.P.
Claudius Maines, we will see how it pans out. See how he does.
I like that you name your characters like these like extreme weird names. I played D&D for the first time. Mine was a halfling, and her name was Pork Chop. And she has a little rat friend who can do little tricks, and his name is Cowboy.
See? No, that's awesome. Here's the thing. I have a friend of mine who, when I talked to him about playing D&D, like the fact that I named my character Lamangelo Williams, he hated it. And I was like, what's wrong with that? He said, and he said something, and it's actually kind of true. He said, there's two types of people. There's people who play D&D like Lord of the Rings, and there's people who play it like it's Monty Python. And you, sir, play it like Monty Python. And I don't like that. And I said, you know what? That's fair enough. I can accept that. Because I would drive myself crazy if everyone played it like Lord of the Rings, like really took themselves super serious. That would drive me crazy. So the first thing I did when I was talking to this new DM, I was trying to feel him out. Like, listen, like, I'm not going to try to break your campaign, because I've played with people that try to break the campaign, and that's no fun for anybody. But I also don't want us to take ourselves too seriously. And as I was explaining this to him, I was like, can I name my character? Because that's usually, I say, can I name my character Lamangelo Williams? And if they say yes, then I'm like, okay, cool. You know what you're getting into. Can I come in with Lamangelo, or do I need to name my character Lothar Stronghammer or something? And yes, they can name him Lothar Stronghammer. I know. Well, what elves don't do this? Only mountain elves do this. Get out of here. I want to be able to roll no apparent reason. At least once. I won't do it any other time, but just let me do it once. And I was trying to explain
For a good time, not a long time.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I'm gonna have to use that. And I was trying to explain he'll walk into a bar that we're trying to get information from and then start a fight with the bartender. Like, don't do that. Like this bartender didn't do nothing. He don't need to be fighting. So as I was trying to explain stuff, and I really don't feel like I'm the type of person to be explaining stuff because I know so very little about D&D, but I knew the most out of everybody, out of all the players, except for the DM. And I was like, if you have an idea, ask if you can do it. Obviously don't do anything silly, or like too silly, but if you want to role play your character as kind of like a goofy kind of, like I want to play mine like Thor. So let him be overconfident. Let him think that his abilities are too much, like, of course he would be the guy to want to do something kind of brash and brazen, but at the same time, like, he's not going to be the guy to walk up and punch I use this as a good example. It's like punch the bartender or punch a guard or try to, fight his way out of a prison cell or punch the king, do something like that. Like, just legitimately just start abrupt chaos. That's not something he's going to do. He knows how to politic. He knows how to get what he wants, but at the same time, he'll rush into battle, overconfident about himself.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And
I think that's more fun.
Yeah. Set your rules for your character, and make them understandable. And this goes for movies too. Like, establish whatever rules you want to reside in and stick to them. Don't if you especially if you're lawfully good, if your alignment is lawfully good, don't be chaotic evil. So, yeah. But I don't know. It's going to be fun. I look forward to telling everybody about the adventures of Claudius and everybody else. It's going to be a blast.
I'm excited. It'll be good.
So, all right. And with that, let's close this bad mamma jamma out. Let's go home. Pull the curtains, go to bed, all that good stuff. Raven, where can they find you on social media?
If you go on to the little Twitters, if you're into that, it's at __ wait, no. What was I just changed my Twitter handle.
Oh, you did?
What is it? Oh, yeah, I recently did. Oh, okay. It's at spooky __ Raven. And then I'm also on Instagram. I got my dog grooming Instagram. I, of course, have an Instagram for my own dog, for him to, of course, he posts on there. And then I've got my regular Instagram that's So Raven Ellis with underscores in between each word. And then links to my other two. Just hang out on my page. What about you? Where's all your handles at?
Let's see. I think on Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at Turtles Do It. And I think that's it for me personally. But if you want to follow the show, we are at Nerd for No Reason on Instagram, Twitter, and the Facebooks. That's how you find us. And if you want to hear us talk about something in particular, then drop us a line and let us know, because we are always open for new ideas.
You guys have a good week. Watch some good stuff. Ingest all your medias, as you should.
Go out and do something wonderful in the world. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.